Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and I'm so excited to say that I'm going to show you how to paint this abstract, fantastical landscape step by step. Now, this is part of the 30-day painting challenge, Acrylic April, and this month's theme is abstract, but there's a lot of different kinds of abstracts, and I wanted to make sure that I got some abstract landscapes in there, and I was like, definitely need some abstract fantasy landscapes because they really play into a lot of fun things. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
He is going to make sure that you guys can see what I'm painting, what I'm demoing, what I'm explaining. I've got a lot of resources. If you check the description below, there's a lot of information about things like materials, the brushes that I used. There's a link to our store. So if there's something that you see here that you want to get, that's a location. But you don't have to. You can just watch the lesson. There's a school where these lessons, if you're doing the 30-day challenge, are put together sequentially with some extra information. There is also our website, and there is a book and a Facebook group. So, and that's the Acrylic April group on Facebook, which is very curated and super supported, and no meanness is allowed. So, whether you just came into this one and you wanted to do it, or you are doing the whole challenge, I've got a resource to help you do it. Remember, please let me know what you think of these. If you've got a question, leave a comment. I check my YouTube channel all the time so that your questions can be answered, so that I'm available to you. You can write us at support@theartsherpa.com. We are here to help you if you're having any trouble finding any of the resources. We're just about making sure that you guys have the best possible painting experience that you can have. I don't think there's really anything to do but say, let's get our paint, get our brushes, come and paint together, where I show you how to paint with me in acrylic this fantasy abstract landscape. Let's go. So let's go over what we're using in today's crazy little class. I've got an 8x8 surface here. I have all the colors out on the palette. I have the Hansa. Let me make sure I read this correctly because I want you guys to be able to find it easily. Lemon yellow Hansa. So the Van Dyke bismuth yellow would be fine. Lemon yellow, yellow light, cad yellow light. Any of those will work. You're just looking for a light yellow. Cad yellow medium, cad red medium, quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue, Mars black, dioxazine purple, which was a little indulgent to put out, but I was like, I've got it there. Phthalo green, phthalo blue, and titanium white. Shall we hop into step one? I think step one will be fun. So for step one, I'm going to start with a Hog Bristle Bright. This is the number 20 Raphael. You could use the 18. You don't have to have all the sizes of brushes. Just, it's good to have some brights, some rounds, some assortments of things. And we're going to start putting in kind of a diffused background. It's going to be sort of bisected on the canvas, half and half. So in this sort of weird two worlds kind of space, and it's a general one, so I don't have to be too specific, I am going to start up here, and I'll just sort of divide my surface in half a little bit, and I'm making little curved strokes on the edge of the brush. You can see just working this into the surface. Now as I'm going to come down, I can add more white into it, and I might even kind of wipe off here and get a little white and a little of my lemon yellow. Just kind of lightening this up. This is really just that first layer. So it's a generalized thing that we're working out. I'm going to continue to lighten up here, and you can see as I go in, it kind of gives some atmosphere. If I come in with the corner of my brush, making little C strokes, and then kind of blending in. Doesn't have to be perfectly divided because of what we're doing here. We're just going to want to, from this middle point, the brush strokes will be up and down. So at the middle, that's kind of what we're doing. And then I'll go back into my kind of darker turquoise here on this outer edge, and then blend this back up, curve the side. I'm taking a little more blue up here to just really deepen that. Okay, so that's one half. I'm going to rinse this out. We don't really have to dry it to do the other half because they're not necessarily going to cross over. This is sort of about getting a general color palette in the underpainting. Kind of going in, do you know what I mean, John?
Yeah, I think I do.
So don't get too wrapped up in all the little bits, which you can do as a beginner, but really it's more important that you have the general concept because we have so many layers coming.
So
All right.
next step.
Next step. I've rinsed my brush out thoroughly, same brush. And I'm going to come in and I think I'm going to do a really interesting thing. I'm going to take a little bit of my cad yellow and my cad red and I'm going to come here. Kind of working that in. I'll go ahead and pull that down a bit. I'm going to wipe the brush off. Get a little more cad red in. You can see brushing it down. So there's some real kind of effect created through, it's okay that I've got the red there. I'm just wanting to make sure that that's a nudged vertical. Now I can come in and do a little cad red and quin magenta. And then I might come over into my Docs purple. And brush that back in. And you can see that's just, again, general. Now I might soften this transition here. And one way I can do that is come in with a little bit of my cad red and work it back in. But again, we've got several layers, so chances are, quinacridone, that we're going to have lots and lots of room to play with all of this. It's just about having that little values between the two. Now I do want to dry this pretty thoroughly. I'm going to rinse my brush out and put it to the side. Let's dry this with a hairdryer and come back. I'm going to show you what the next step is. So now I'm going to take advantage of my T-square and I'm going to come down and kind of create a lower third line. And what I'll do is I might even use my Posca paint pen because that will, no, I'll use chalk just in case I want to change my mind later. Chalk lets you change your mind so easily. Now I'm going to come to either side because I do buy an inexpensive ruler. Just making sure that my line is horizontal is kind of like the big thing. And then I'm going to come in and start changing up some of, how I'm seeing this. I'm going to grab one of my brights, I think. I've got a bright somewhere that is the Raphael bright, but I don't think yeah, I do. All right, so here's a bright. This is a number 12 Raphael bright. You just want a nice kind of like squared off brush with the synthetic filament because it's going to give you some very, very sharp edges. And I'm taking my lemon yellow and a little of my phthalo blue and a lot of white. I want something quite luminous, and I'm going to come across here on quite a horizontal line, like you do. Brushing out as we go. And come over to my turquoise here and pull some down. So a little of my phthalo blue, phthalo green, and white in vertical lines. Go ahead and get some white. You can see I'm sort of blending it while it's still wet. And you can see how going through the wet in the vertical, so I've got the horizontal wet into the vertical wet, and that kind of creates an interesting effect, which I rather like. I'm going to come over here, and I am going to really start to play with some things. I'm going to bring maybe some of this red and quinacridone. It's quite vibrant, yeah? And then let's get a little of our yellow. And this time I'm over the top. I mean, like, I'm always over the top, but you can see I'm sort of pulling this down, right?
Are you telling me you're an arm wrestler?
I'm just saying that I might have a wacky little way of doing things. And I'll come back through, as you can see, with that horizontal. I might come back with a little. So it's like sort of playing a horizontal and vertical line. Adding a little white to that. Not really the last thing I'll do there, but let's call that a step. We don't really need to dry that at this point because we're going to work up above now. We're going to let this dry sort of on its own, and we're going to start doing some up above work. Now I'm going to come over and I'm going to get into a round hog, I think. I very much like this one. So this is a number 18 round hog. It's just about a kind of pinky ring finger kind of little width around the barrel, and it's got a nice wide belly, and it comes to a point. I'm describing the brush to you because, like, maybe you don't have this exact brush, right? But you could find a brush like it to get a similar effect. I'm going to come into my white where I had the lemon yellow and a little of my phthalo blue. And I'm going to do that little, you know, we like it, the scumblies, right? If I need a little water, I can get it on there, but I don't want a lot. Carefully above that line. Maybe a little of the lemon yellow worked in. You see me dancing that brush around. The brush is at the handle's at an angle to the canvas. I'm engaging from the mid belly to the toe, and I am wiggling around. I describe these things in that kind of detail just so you guys understand how I'm getting an effect, right? Because that can be kind of hard to understand, can it? How are you getting an effect? I'm going to come in with a little bit of that into where I have the yellow. I'm creating that we kind of did this in, you know, in an ocean wave during this month. And it's sort of a very similar goal that we've got going on here. And then maybe get a little more into my phthalo green. And let's go dioxazine purple. So that's an unexpected color combo if you haven't played with it before. And you can see I'm working the toe. What's happening here? It's irregular edges. Okay, let's call that a step. We are cooking along, having a good time, aren't we?
Yeah.
Let's work up in here. I'm going to start with a little of my lemon yellow and some white. Now I know I'm going to be changing some space in here, but I'm going to go ahead and paint in just so that I have continuity. That's it. I'm going to get into my cad yellow, working it into this. Cad yellow and cad red. Always a joy, right? Now pulling in some more cad red. Let's come maybe along here in the bottom a bit. Cad red and magenta, always a very strong pair. I'll push this down into the orange space. I'm doing very similar what I did over in the blue, just creating some atmosphere. We all need a little atmosphere, right? And a little Quin and Da'Ox purple. Working this in, blending in these two edges. It's quite a dramatic turn of events, I think. And then I'll definitely kind of pull that in. I think I'll have like maybe some interesting little vertical or structures over here, but oh, I went a little below my line, but that's okay because I'm going to be down there with my dark anyways in a minute, and that's perfectly fine. Well, man, we have some real effect there, don't we? Some real
Yeah.
interesting effect. Now I'm going to definitely rinse this out and put this over to the side. We're going to dry everything and come back. I'm going to show you what you do next. I'm back into my number 12 bright. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to create some little curving and vertical angles that are coming down. You see how I'm doing? Using the brush? And I'm going to pull those down with my brush. I'm going to add a little there. Adding a little bit of maybe kind of yellow to that. I'm going to get a little bit of my phthalo blue and phthalo green. Pulling in a little bit of Da'Ox purple there. So you can see it's sort of, they're next to each other. And then I'm going to round this out. Now in the forward face of this one, I'm going to come in and get a little of my phthalo blue and white. A little more phthalo blue and white. And see those little highlights there? How they pull in? I'm going to grab a little Quin and Dioxazine purple and white. And that's it on that side. fun stuff, right?
Yeah, I think this is a very abstractly expressive piece.
It is very abstract and expressive, and it's doing some interesting things, I feel. I
You
definitely
ready for
feel.
our next step?
I am. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to also come into my purple. It's going to be similar kind of with my bright brush and the kind of curving little angles out.
Very dark purple.
It's a very dark purple. This purple will read almost as a black. And then I'm going to come into, actually, I might do something surprising here. I'm going to come over to maybe a little ultramarine blue and phthalo blue and titanium white. You can see I'm pulling those same edge lights down. That's kind of wild, I know. Now, Doxazine purple and ultramarine blue. And we're going to come here, vertical, and then edge over. Vertical, and I'm leaving a little blue there, and I may come back and exaggerate that in a second. And edge over. Little white into that so we can kind of see the blue casting of it. It's important. Looking pretty good. Same deal here. This one will go up higher. What an interesting little shape, isn't it? I like that very much. Drop my
That
little
is
towel.
cool.
It's a trip. It's a super duper trip. Now in here, I mentioned that I might kind of change this up, and I think I'm going to. I'm going to take my yellow and my phthalo blue and phthalo green and create that like kind of radioactive turquoise, but lighter than that. There we go. Get a little of that yellow coming up. Wipe off my brush, get a little of that yellow, and I'm going to bring that up. Drive that right up there. That's pretty intense. Pretty intense. This side, I'm going to go into my quinacridone and purple. And also pull that down. Let's go even Kind of creating that there. That looks pretty good. I'll rinse out. I'm going to come here and get some of my blue. My ultramarine blue. See, I'm just pulling that down, letting those sort of trail off. Oof, I'm working it. We're working it.
I like it.
Gonna get a little bit of my cad red and quinacridone magenta. It's okay if it picks up a little bit of my Doc's purple, and I'll put a little of that there. Kind of edging that just a touch there. Just a touch. Okay, that is this step, and really to do anything else, we're gonna need to dry it. So let's continue to work this out and this edge and everything that we need to really sort of have in hand. I'm going to come and get my white into my phthalo blue and lemon yellow space that I already had set up and kind of edge that again, as you do. Maybe a little more down the center, slightly lighter value. Just a bit. And come in and get a little lemon yellow and white. Kind of pull that highlight in the middle of everything. I like that very much. Rinse that off. And I think that I'm going to get back into my like round brush, my like bristle brush that's round here. I'm going to go ahead and get a little of my quinacridone, and you know, maybe this time it's got a little ultramarine blue in it, makes it a little more violet. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but it do. And I'm going to just on the toe kind of create another little scumbly space. And a little more magenta. It's kind of fun. Works kind of enjoyable, kind of goofy. Maybe a little more. Got one of my hairs on my palette. It's like, I will stick to this no matter what. I kind of like the combo of that blue and magenta. That's sort of really surprising, isn't it?
It really is. I like that.
Very good, very good. I'm going to get more into my purple over here. Do kind of a similar kind of little patterning over here. Now I'm getting like my dark purple so that it is really coming out of a intense space. Oh, I like that. That works very well. Got my quinacridone magenta and my cad red. And these are just like little marks, right? So I'm just on the toe of the brush. And what's working here is that the brush is a bit fluffy. So it sort of allows me to get away with some of that. I don't really need to do much more past that on this per se. I'm going to come back and maybe get a little of my quin magenta and my lemon yellow and a lot of white. Like a lot. Just kiss a little pink there. It just, do you see how it kind of zoozed it?
Yeah.
And I'm going to get into my pink here and my white. Maybe a little more white because I really want this to. Kind of pulling those there. And that really captures the fronts of those, I think. Just a little bit. Fronts, fronts, fronts.
I like it.
I like it too.
These really turned into something interesting.
This becomes more and more interesting as we work and play. And I think that that's the important thing to realize is that there is a element of play. I want to get even lighter than that. Say value is the interesting challenge here. Little elements there. And that creates some interesting elements there. Come back with some purple just to make sure that this is balanced like it needs to be. Oh my goodness, look at that. So I think that we're going to call that a step that we did very, 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 very well, I believe. Oh my goodness, I'm having a lot of fun with this.
I love it. Now,
I've got to create some interesting kind of forward work stuff here. So I'm going to get into my purple. I have way more black out than I need, just so you know, because my actual intention is to use purple for my darkest values. And only one thing I think is going to be black, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm being very rough with this. Come across here. And I'll pull down as you do. pulling down with quinacridone. So you see I'm going verticals and horizontal play again.
Yeah.
Some vertical play. Let's get some white into that. This is kind of wiggling out. It's also kind of wiggling out. Come on that corner of my brush and make some interesting little effects and shapes. Now I do want to come back into here, my phthalo blue, my phthalo green, you know, my titanium white. Get my little lemon yellow in there. A lot more white. And then I'm going to wiggle this back through there. Coming in with my little purple mix there. Just kind of smidging these colors over to the side. See how we're doing? Then I can use the corner of this brush to sort of join that diffusion. I'm going to pull this down, but I'll put my purple back in a second. Just going to pull this down for a second because that's just like the perfect moment to do that. Do you see how we're doing?
Yeah, just pull down.
But I can always go right back. I'm going to bring some like dark purple in through the rippling. But I want to take out all the vertical work that I've got, which can be kind of challenging, but you just keep where you're going. Okay, that was challenging, right? Does it feel a little challenging?
It looks really good.
Now the thing that I'm going to want to do is just kind of try to make sure that these read visually to me as mostly vertical, not at an angle. So that's sometimes what you see me touching up is that. Got a similar thing to do over here. And then I kind of work those down in the verticals. What's nice is there's a bit of a I don't know, I like to think of it as like a glazing feel to the
No,
purple.
I can see that. Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit easier. And this just starts to feel, you know, maybe a little more exciting. And I can do a similar thing here. Don't want it to go angled though, so I will make sure that that is, you know, a little come in with the corner of my brush and a little bit of that turquoise from over there. And look what that does there. It's not an interesting effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can always come back with that. No difficulty. Come into my Quinn, maybe a little bit of my Cad Red. I'm going to improve my brush angle because I want to kind of make some little rivulets out this way. See how we're doing?
Yeah.
Just a little bit of that rivulet out that way. Sometimes this is challenging to do. Oh, I need more white there. That got too dark. Then I'll get my green yellow. You can see I'm just sort of pulling that color through. Yeah, I like that. Dance, dance, dance. Dance, dance, dance.
I like it.
You like it a lot? A little of the lemon yellow and white. So that those have just a bit of a now dry everything. Dry everything. So we're going to add a few forward highlights and then our last figure. The forward highlights are very much like we did before. Let's take our phthalo blue and our ultramarine blue and a little titanium white. And I'm going to come to the front of these. And also just sort of hit some. I wonder how I got some yellow in there. That was so weird. Just a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect or anything like that. It's just So touching, you'll notice that I touch and release on the canvas.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more white over here. Okay, so that gives us those. Kind of that feeling, that effect that I like very much. And now I'm going to get into my detail brush for the too much black paint that I have out, and I'm going to thin it a little bit. Now, if I didn't want to do this, I could do my Posca pen, but the Posca pen is harder to erase if I change my mind. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little line right here. It's about the width of a nail. That's about the size of it. And you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to put on my eyeglasses so I can see the detail work.
Right.
So I'm not struggling, because I'm like, my mind was like, this is hard. And then I was like, it's not really hard. This line curves back a little bit. That one kind of maybe has implied bend. Then I can straighten that one out. I'm going to, this is sort of like a carrot with a split root, I guess would be what I would think of it as a good explanation I've heard before. Going to just tap that, come across here. So you can kind of see I'm just implying right, got that there. I know, fingers. I really want it to trail behind the figure.
Yeah, I get it. A nice little streaky.
I add small amounts at a time. You know, and on this one, what I would say is if you are at a place where you're ready for this sort of abstract figure and it's not going to throw you off entirely, go for it. Right? I'm just painting in a little bit of blue, and then I might apply a little bit of that line. Do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Down the shadow. For a bit. Just a touch that you can do. And so you don't have to add this because, again, it's abstract, so it's really... If it's not for you, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that if it's not for you. And I just basically hit at these things until I'm like, oh yeah, that feels to me like figures walking in a distance. I'm taking my Cad Red to my Quin Magenta. I'm adding a little bit of white. It's a subtle thing, but you know. Sometimes that subtlety really, I'm doing the inside edge there. That creates another little subtlety to the whole thing. All right. Goodness gracious. Look at where we went. Look at what we did. I do want to sign this one. Just grabbing some white paint, and I'm going to use my detail brush. Get that signature in there. You don't have to sign abstracts. Well, you don't have to sign any paintings, actually. You just can. Some people are very for signing. Some people are very against signing. I'm for signing with some thought and consideration that the signature is part of the composition. So you got to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, so it's got to be there, but it can't pull your eye away from all this hard work that you just did. Look what you just did. Look at what we did. Isn't this fantastic?
It really is amazing.
I really love this one. This one is, I would do this one big. Big, 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 big. Like 30 by 30, 40 by 40. It would be just uplifting and inspiring to me. Get into it deeper and play with it even more. Now, remember, we have resources to help you on very objective ones if that's necessary. There's sometimes free traceables on the website. This is one I probably will include one for. Not that I don't think you shouldn't follow through on the techniques as I did them, but I think in this particular case, if you had the traceable, you might be like, oh, I'll go for the figure, or you might push yourself a little bit more. But if you're ready for those techniques to just freehand them with me, go for that. Jump in for that. There's the school to help you with this, and there's extra, like encouragement and things at the school. There's also the book and the group, the Acrylic April group of people who will be like, my figure was crazy too. I'm sure it's going to be topic. I declare it now. I'm just going to be like, but you know what? I intend and wish that you have the best figure you've ever painted in your life. And this is one of the best paintings you've ever done in your life. And it really touches you into something important. Guys, be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.